Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa Varuco, and welcome back to Personal Pans, conversations about belief, transformation, and all the weird and wonderful things that we experience. Today's guest is Steph Fowler. She's the founder of Inkwell Psychotherapy. She started a series of workshops for misfit mental health. And she's also one of my favorite people. If you've listened to the podcast and you've heard me reference one of my best friends, my friend who's a therapist, or my friend with long COVID, and I'm pretty sure I have referenced her every single episode. That's her. She's one of the most intelligent people I know. She's incredibly fluent in therapy and addiction, in trauma, and we ended up talking for 3 hours. This is just part of the conversation. I think I'm going to be releasing a part 2. She talks about working in a haunted office and what it's like to be a therapist for weirdos. And much like me, Steph defines weirdos as the misfits, the neurodivergents, the cycle disruptors. That was a phrase I wrote down. The people who don't quite fit with this world, and gives them a space to be themselves. She's also doing a workshop on January 1st. Today is actually the last day to sign up for it, which is why I was able to actually get this episode recorded and out into the world, because I've signed up for it, and I would encourage you as well. It's a New Year's Day reflection workshop. It should be chill and low-key, and a great way to start out the year. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Steph.
Did I ever tell you my haunted office story though?
No, tell that.
Yeah, so the first group practice that I worked for had this penthouse suite of a building in Lincoln Park. And it was this kind of weird place where the elevator only, like, you had to have the key to get the elevator to come all the way up to our floor. And it was very private, especially when we were first getting started, because there weren't a ton of clients coming in and out. And at the time, there was like the owner and I think just myself and one other therapist. And we typically were not in the office at the same time. But I had met someone who was coming to the office to try out. We were specializing in neurofeedback, and they came to try that out a couple of times. And this person was, I'm not sure if they prefer the term medium, but they had some sort of kind of abilities. But I'm telling the story out of order. But after I had spent a ton of time there at the office by myself, just kind of getting my office set up and different things. But I would hear like footsteps and knew that nobody else was able to access the floor, or that my coworkers were not going to be around, because we were aware of when we were going to cross paths. And I would like always peek my head out in the hallway and not see anybody. Be like, was there a maintenance person up here? Could never see people. There was a lot of that going on. And then a different client I had seen a few times, and when we were in session, the door would crack open. And again, like, this is a pretty private space where there's not other doors being open that would pull that open and the airflow. There was no reason that that would be happening that I could make sense of. So this new client, this new person who was coming to try neurofeedback, told me that they were a medium, and they were kind of like smirking this one day when we were talking, and they're like, can I tell you something? And I said, yeah. And they were like, have you ever had any experiences in here? And I was like, I don't know what you mean. What are you gonna tell me? And
Therapist answer, yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to like leave it open to interpretation, like not say anything.
Obviously.
And
yes.
he's like, yeah, so I get, there's a couple of spirits around. There's a little girl and a little boy, and they really like being around you. But like, I think the little boy likes to be mischievous sometimes and like kind of do things to try to get your attention, but they don't want to be like like mean or scary at all. They just want you to know that they like to be around. And I was like, oh, okay. And then they said, yeah, and they also like the other therapist a lot. They want to like keep an eye out and protect her and the baby. And I was like, what baby? And they're like, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. That's what they said. They want to protect her and the baby. So I'm getting chills talking about this. So like the next time I saw the other therapist in the office, I told her what he had said, and she was like, white as it goes. She's like, I am pregnant, but nobody knows that yet. And she was also like not really supposed to be able to get pregnant. So it was like extra, not a thing that like you would somehow, this client had never seen her. She was not showing. There's just so many levels at which that was mind blowing. And then I did some research about this building, and it used to be like a therapeutic school and or hospital, like for children, ages and ages ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, yep.
Oh
Weirdest thing I have experienced as a therapist.
Oh my.
I have zero other explanation for how
Of course.
that could happen.
It's so good to talk to you. I swear to God. It's good to see your face. Like,
You too.
it's also really funny because like I feel like I have mentioned you on every single episode of the podcast.
I noticed in the ones that I've listened to, I'm like, oh, I think that's me.
My therapist friend. That's you. I have a friend who's a therapist, or I have a friend who's on COVID. It's like I'm constantly referring to you. I mean, in general in my life, but also on the podcast. You always have good things to say.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, this is why we're friends, because we bounce off of each other with all of these ideas, and this is always just very natural and neurodivergent flow of ideas and fun and easy, and I am so thankful for it.
Oh, me too. Me too. Well, and again, I always like Virgo and Aquarius, I feel like on paper should probably not be as cozy as they are with each other. But I think it's the idealism that like I just want to make things right, and then of course that like interest in ideas and systems and how things work. Virgos are a little better at like implementing. Aquarians are just like, whatever, the wind will take it, it'll be fine.
Need a little earth in your yeah.
My Mercury's a Capricorn, and I joke, but I'm not joking. I think it's the only thing that has allowed me to function as a human at all. That grounding just in my brain of like, is this gonna work? Is this gonna work? I had that conversation with Orly too, where she was just like, yeah, I remember when I met you, or like she's like, before I met you, I was like, I don't know how this is gonna work because she's an artist, and she's like, and then I met you, and I was like, she's an artist. Like, yes, and a businesswoman, and that comes through. So
left brain, right brain doing their thing. Yeah,
just firing again and again with that neurodivergence, like literally firing all the time. And I wanted to talk with you about that too, this idea of, especially as you like move out of growing up evangelical, being immersed in that for so long, and sacrificing your identity for so long in order to fit in again with that narrow definition of goodness. And you have become a therapist now for misfits and weirdos. And in your mind, like what, I guess the inspiration for that, and what you feel like you bring to the table in terms of that as a therapist.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It was mostly accidental. I think it came from, I think it was like a natural thing that just happened after I spent some time reconnecting with myself. And I will often talk about how there was a period in my professional life where I tried to open a practice, didn't go, took too long to get off of the ground, and then I was going through a divorce and like needed a steady income and insurance and all that jam. So I had to abandon it because I couldn't get it growing fast enough. And in hindsight, I realized it was because I was not myself. I was not being true to myself, and I was trying to be too many things to too many people. And when you do that, I think as a therapist, it either, I think sometimes clients know that, and or you can like burn yourself out on like, I don't know about this, so I need to go become an expert on it and do all of this deep dive into every single thing that's coming at you, versus just kind of like doing what you do well and letting people self-select in is like the shift. Like I was marketing and like trying to grab whoever I could.
Yeah.
And I found that when I actually became an authentic version of myself and I put that out there in a, I don't know if this is going to make sense to anybody who's not a therapist, but like Psychology Today is like the biggest place that people go for therapists. And there's these prompts that they give you to write a bio. And I figured out pretty quickly, like, you got to fuck the prompts. You got to like, you get X number of characters, tell the story that you want to tell. And when I started doing that of like, here's who I am and here's what I'm about if you want to work with me, versus come see me, oh my God, everybody, I need to make money, then it just, I was naturally attracting people who were a good fit for me. And that is such a valuable lesson that I talk to my therapist clients about is, you know, if they are just starting out, the more you can reflect who you are to people just in life, that you will attract the people who naturally want to be part of what you're about. And that is, there's a way to do that, that marketing doesn't have to feel gross and like a car salesman and whatever. It's just like, yo, here's what I'm about, here's who I am, here's what I do, who's on board. And that ended up kind of just like bringing a whole bunch of people to me. And like, when I say weirdo, I mean that as the deepest term of endearment possible.
Yes.
That what I mean is like the neurodivergent, the chronically ill, disabled, black sheep, outcasts, the cycle disruptors in their families, the, you know, like that to me is all of the people who don't belong in typical places or in their families or in these systems that want people to be this particular kind of way. They all started coming to me. And so, you know, it was beautiful and accidental and organic. And I love that about this work, that it just takes so much less effort when you naturally attract people that you enjoy working with, and B, get to just be yourself with people and not try so hard to live up to some sort of, I mean, we could talk for hours about how I think professional standards are colonization just condensed. And so like I, for example, this shirt that I'm wearing is a good example. I wore this to a CEU event years ago when I was just like opening my Inkwell Psychotherapy practice. And this dude, therapist, of course, came up to me and was like, you don't wear that when you see clients, do you? And I said, yeah, I do. Why? And he's like, well, doesn't it scare them? And I was like, never clients, only therapists.
Oh my God.
Because like that is some
Virgo burn right there. Yeah.
that is some of this bullshit about professionalism of like, what, I can't have a personality or an identity. I've just gotta, what is like beige khakis all the time. I don't know, that ain't me. That's not gonna work.
Well, again, this is that whole idea of, okay, we have to sacrifice our authenticity again, for profitability, for goodness, right? However you want to frame it. It's like, and the idea, which I could rant for hours about, this false idea of objectivity and neutrality.
Yes.
You are a human being. The objectivity is a lie. And so is the idea of neutrality, right? You are coming to every situation with a series of biases, with a series of beliefs that have just been, again, you've been indoctrinated into believing certain things because you were raised in a society, right? It's not necessarily bad, it's just the norms of that society. Unless you are actively working towards dismantling them, you get to pretend, again, that you have this objective perspective, that you can just be neutral. And again, that idea of being everything for everyone also cycles back to a trauma response, right?
Absolutely.
Where you're just like gaslighting yourself into thinking like, well, if I'm just good enough, then everyone will come see me as a therapist. Like, do you want to see everyone?
That is the question that I ask my therapist clients, is like, do you actually want all of these people that you're attracting? Do you enjoy working with them? Do they burn you out? Do they, and it's not that they're fault, it's just a mismatch. Like, that is the thing. It's not like there's anything wrong with the client, or there's anything wrong with therapist, there's a mismatch. But I think that's when I talk about misfits, it's not just people who naturally don't really fit in, but it's kind of cultivating the willingness to not fit in. It is letting there be misfits, because that is reclaiming so much capacity for yourself, reclaiming, not people pleasing, not contorting and shape shifting, is letting there be a misfit. But that is very challenging to anyone, I think, in our culture, but especially for anybody who has experienced trauma or this deep sense of belonging or wanting to belong and feeling like they have not had that place. To feel on the outside does not feel good. It is not just as simple as choosing to not fit. That's where I think a lot of like nervous system stuff and a lot of I think of it as like deprogramming from a lot of these ideas, and dismantling that to a place where they can understand this awkwardness that I feel isn't the problem. It is speaking to the misfit between myself and these systems, or this misfit between my values and my family's values, or this misfit between these different things, that if you can understand and tell a different story about what this awkwardness is, that is so liberating.
Well, and when you were describing this, I wrote down cycle disruptors, because you had said something to me probably years ago at this point, that the idea of the black sheep of the family is the one who is pushing back against all of the abuse and the denial of that abuse. It again, like the gadfly was like, why are we doing this way? Why is everyone else okay with this? And again, rather than people questioning like, well, why are we doing this? It's like, well, why can't you just fall in line? Right? Why can't you just do what we're all doing? And it's like, because it hurts and it sucks and I don't want to. How about that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And even in families where there maybe wasn't abuse, there was status quo. There was how we do things here. And for people who are either, whatever, they could just be an individual. They don't have to even be neurodivergent or a geek or weird or whatever. They could just like not fit in with that or not feel okay about that. And if there's not space for that, then you start to feel like, well, there's something wrong with me, which is again this kind of like narrative about, if it's about me, then it's something that I can fix, and then taking that with you through your whole life. But yeah, I think that the acknowledgement, this is one of the hardest things for people, is I'm going to disappoint people. I'm not going to fit in places. Not everybody is for me. I'm going to get rejected. Again, if you are maybe a little bit further along in the process, that starts to not carry as much weight. But when you are just figuring that out, it is hard, because it feels like that internal, I am not okay if I am not being accepted, if I'm being rejected. So it takes developing, honestly, some like distress tolerance for that, and some like exposure therapy of I'm going to do some things that are not going to be accepted in some places, or I'm going to take some risks that I've not let myself take, even just socially.
Oh yeah.
To learn that I can tolerate this and I can be okay, and learn to trust that I don't need that. It's a little bit of approval, but it's like belonging from everyone. Not, you do need that with some people.
Yes.
But again, when you twist and contort and make yourself somebody that you're not, your true people who see and value you can't find you, because you're shifting so much that they don't know who you are.
That's it. They don't know you're my people, right?
Yeah.
Like one of the things that's been so great about this podcast is like, oh, I just keep finding more of my people, right? It's like I see people online, I'm like, you seem cool, and then we talk and it's like, yep, I knew it. But I don't think I could have done this at any other point in my life, especially, or I could have done it, but like not until I experienced that kind of unraveling that happened with grief, because I was reduced to not being able to mask anymore, not being able to pretend anymore, not being able to be anything for anyone else anymore.
That's it.
So it really laid bare. Who am I? Who are my people? Who are not my people? Who can't tolerate this? Who don't want this? And again, that's so, again, it brings up this point. It's like, okay, do you want to be a therapist for everyone? And also, do you want validation from everyone?
That's it.
There are certain people that I like and respect, and would also like them to like and respect me. There are a lot of people out there, again, not for me, and I don't care what they think about me. But again, I've been in a lot of therapy, I've done a lot of work, and I'm also Aquarius, so I have that certain sensibility of like, whatever, you have fun over there, that's fine. I don't need this. Oh, that's also probably a trauma response, though, and extra resilience. Anyway, I'll talk to Tova about that later.
Ultra independence.
Ooh, yikes. It's hard because some of these things, these adaptations that we make, can be incredibly useful in terms of resilience in a wider world. Yeah, the problem is when we start, is the ways in which we overcorrect, right? And then it's like, oh, but we're not talking to people when things are bad because we don't trust that anyone will attend in the ways that we need. There's also a false narrative. It is backed up by previous experience, but
that's what's hard. That's what's hard. You got to go against the neural pathway of this is not safe. It's very challenging to do.
That's exactly it. Well, and especially too when those neural pathways get set when you're younger, because you can do also, and this has happened to me. I mean, I've done a lot of therapeutic work over the years. I have built new neural pathways. And also when I am in a stressful situation, I revert. Those are there. Those are foundational, right? That was like initial programming. Now, thankfully, I'm at a point where I can talk myself through it and talk myself out of it and know this is a trauma response. This is a bodied response based off of my past. And again, it's even just asking the question, am I responding to something that happened to me then, or am I responding to the moment
to what's happening now?
Yes, exactly. Because usually if you can acknowledge like, oh, this is because of that thing that happened when I was 6, you know, and not, oh, because this person was mean to me at the store, you know, like.
Or like the fun reframe I like for that too, as I've been learning about internal family systems and parts work, is like, not to negate anything you said, but like another lens through which to think about that is this my like capital S true self showing up, or is this like a young part who's very hurt showing up, or is this a very strong, very practiced protector who has had this role of keeping me safe for a long time? Are they coming out in full force because they have been so practiced at protecting that they just default? They think that they have to show up. They think that they need to do that, versus letting your like true capital S self show up and handle it, because they haven't trusted that self potentially. Like they need to learn that and learn that you've got you can handle it now. And it's not necessary for them to come out, you know, guns blazing, annihilate everybody. That you can you can have a seat. Thank you for your service. And also I got it from here. Like that takes some time. It takes some time.
And that too. I mean, that's the hard part about all of this stuff is it takes time. It takes time and it takes practice, right?
Yep.
It's like, even if you become aware of why you're reacting in a certain way to something or which part is coming out, right? That doesn't automatically fix it.
Yeah.
It is, and now you are aware of, much like systems of like racism and other forms of repression, like you're clued into it now. Now you have to seek out a new way of doing things. You're reacting in the moment because of programming, but you have that cognition of like, oh wait, this is programming. This isn't me. Who am I? What is the authentic self? What is the self that exists not outside of trauma, but like can have more of holistic view of the situation as opposed to just the reactive, right? Like I think about like the idea of reactive mind versus wise mind. Like who is at the table right now? Who is yelling right now?
Yep.
Does that person need to, can they take a break? Do they need a cookie? Like where can you get to really engage properly with a particular situation?
Yeah, and you're also making me think about, as you're talking, like the false narratives that I hear about, I don't know if I want to call it healing or wellness or whatever. I think all of those terms are challenging for me. But I have to be like the bearer of bad news with people a lot, because there is this idea that exists in the ether, in whatever, that like if I do enough, I'll be done. Like if I do therapy right, which is also just really not a thing. But if I do enough and I do it right, then I will feel better forever. Like this will all be behind me. And I will be open to that being possible for some people, but I don't think that it's realistic, because even as I work with like a lot of the people that I'm seeing now, I've seen for years. And even as we like get a handle on some stuff, this can go two ways. One is we work on something and then it's like an onion and we peel back some layers of like, oh, okay, we got some new stuff here. Or we're peeling back layers of onions and then life happens. And now there's new stuff to deal with. And so I think that it's really unfortunate that people are sold this idea if I do enough, I will reach this plateau of nirvana existence where I just don't ever experience feelings. Like is sort of what it comes down to. It's not even just like depression, anxiety. It's like I have people really shaming themselves for, man, why am I still feeling like this weekend? I had such a bad mood and bad sleep and bad whatever. And like, why am I still dealing with this? Because you're human.
You're human. Yeah,
you're not a robot. Like these ideas exist that like we should reach this state of constantly being consistently without feeling, or always feeling good and never getting rocked by anything that happens in our world. That's really, really unfortunate that people try to live up to that. And it's hard sometimes to be the bearer of bad news of like, I think you were sold some bullshit there, and it's not, I don't know that we can hope for that. We can create some possibility for it, but I don't think that's the goal in therapy. It's more like learn how to handle some stuff, get rid of some stuff. If you want to let go of some stuff, let's let go of some stuff, but then let's find some ways to cope with how shit that life's going to throw at you.
That's exactly it. It's learning to manage. And again, I had to face all of this in terms of grief, because it's not a thing that you get over, right? And I don't like any of the models that anybody have used, even some of the more realistic ones, right? Not like the whole 5 stages thing, which we know is bullshit anyway. But this idea, again, the work is ongoing, because I have talked to friends and family members were like, well, why even bother starting, because it'll never be done. And it's like, and again, I think because we do not live in a society, we are not in a culture that fosters vulnerability that people are
Mhm.
terrified, and I think because they have been cruel to other people unknowingly, maybe sometimes knowingly, who have been too vulnerable,
Yeah.
that they know that they're going to face that if they are suddenly facing whatever open wounds that they have, untended wounds,
Mhm.
but are also terrified of finally facing it. And again, it's like, okay, well, do you want to live an authentic life, or do you want to always have a sense? Because I don't think any of these, like the people I've talked to who've said this, they know something's wrong,
Sure.
and they're dealing with that in one
Mhm.
way or another with their own life. And I think they've decided that that is just the cost of doing business, of being
Yeah.
alive. It's like, okay, but you can learn ways to, again, tools to be more resilient, ways of mitigating some of the pain. You don't have to walk around wounded all the, well, like you can tend to the wounds, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the wounds are still going to be there, but you don't have to walk around, I guess, with open wounds all the
Yeah.
time. Like
Yeah.
there is a treatment there. Again, I don't believe in healing. I don't think that's a thing. But treatment is a thing, and it is an ongoing process,
Yeah.
because like you said, there more shit is going to happen in life. But if you learn ways of dealing with previous shit, that helps you deal with,
Yeah.
again, I think that my way of handling the pandemic is different because I dealt with so much loss before the pandemic. And so
Mhm.
this idea of, oh, like I already had come to terms with the idea that my life is forever different, it is never going back to the way it was. Maybe that's okay. There were certain things that I had to let go of anyway. Did I lose some things I didn't want to lose? Oh, fuck yeah. But I can't go back there.
Yeah.
There doesn't exist anymore. So
Yeah.
coming to terms with the pandemic, shifting everything, not that I fully have, but in certain ways, a lot easier, because
Mm.
cognitively, I had already come to that conclusion. Like things
Yeah.
change and cannot be returned to.
Yeah.
You can't do anything about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you say that, because I feel like there was a point in time where that was true for me, where
Hmm.
it was like, oh no, that's old. That is so burned to a crisp. There's no going back to that. And then there was like another reckoning that happened after that, that was harder, because I had just gotten my bearings.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, I thought that I wasn't going to have to do this again. And then just started getting my bearings from that when the pandemic hit. And then I was mysteriously sick,
Yeah.
which ended up being long COVID. And I still feel like I don't totally have my bearings, because it's still this uncertainty of what I'm dealing with. Whereas like with divorce, it was like done. And do I know everything that I need to do to like rebuild? No, but it's like kind of done. Once it's done, it's sort of done.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the grief of losing my best friend, which was life altering, because everything felt attached, because that is he was very much a part of who, like, my rebuilding after divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it was like, oh, but that like felt like a keystone, and now it's gone. And then it took a while to like start to trust that the rest of that could exist, or not even all of it, but like which parts of it were going to be around and could exist without that keystone. And then now it's like, now I don't know what I can trust my body to do. I don't know what I can trust my brain to do, which is not a fun thing for a Virgo. It's rude. It's real rude. I feel like I don't know what my brain's going to do on a given day. Like when you have gotten through shit by relying on yourself,
Oh my God.
and then yourself starts to show you that it can't do the things that it used to be able to do, and that resilience that you have depended on isn't the same. I'm not going to say it's gone, but it's not the same. It doesn't function the same way.
Oh yeah.
It's a mind fuck. It's disorienting. It's hard to know when and how and what moving forward looks like, which is part of, I think, why people's comments about long COVID do not land well with me when it's like false positivity kind of stuff. Like I'm not there yet. Maybe there will come a time when that is a thing that I can grab onto and will keep me afloat, but I am floundering still. And I need recognition of that before I can get to hanging on to that life raft, that because right now it just feels like it's over my head, keeping me underwater. It's not helping.
That's exactly that. And again, it's this idea that people really do not know how to be uncomfortable. Like, I feel like I am very comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like, it's not that it's a good feeling or anything, but I have had to sit in so much of it in my life that I'm like, okay, well, this is to me a natural condition. So again, when I have friends who are experiencing either chronic illness or grief or anything that is that disrupting, it isn't scary for me. I'm not going to recoil from that, because I know that, again, because we're all so trained into thinking that we have to do something to fix something.
Yeah.
We can't leave something unresolved.
Yeah.
And so everybody's trying to fix it, where I'm always just like, man, this really sucks, doesn't it? There's no magic word. There's no magic word or phrase for any situation to fix anything. And so much of these toxic platitudes are just erasure of people's feelings and their lived experiences. And again, we are already experiencing stress and trauma and pain, and it is additional pain slapped right on top of it. And someone's like, you're going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. Like, you don't know that.
Well, they don't. And that's probably what they were given. Like, that's what I keep trying to remind myself so often, is that like they didn't come up with that by themselves. That is what people have done. Their family, society, all of it, they got that from somewhere. So I try on my good days to be cognizant that people are doing the best that they can with what they've been given, and what they've been given a lot of times is not helpful, is not
right.
Actually sitting with that discomfort.
Right.
But that when you're so ingrained in that, it's really hard to not fall into that and to make a conscious choice to sit with someone's pain instead. It's much easier to make yourself feel better by saying what you think is going to make someone else feel better, but it's not always going to land the way that you think it's going to.
Well, again, too, like you have to think in terms of, okay, sure, maybe I need this in this moment, but what does this person need in this moment? And how do I shut off that brain that's like centering myself?
Yeah.
And really looking at a situation that's in front of me, a person that's in front of me, and addressing, again, what they need right now, which might not be an empty platitude. Like,
which also I think is where sometimes with people, I will work with them on like, what are the phrases to keep in your back pocket for various situations? Because if you are unlearning, and so much of what I think all of this is in therapy is unlearning, is pausing, which also people are not good at, but like pausing, really hard for those of us with ADHD. But like pausing and having the forethought of, I really wish that I could do something and I don't know what to say, is better than, for me and for I think a lot of people, is better than some platitude of they're in a better place, or you're gonna feel better one day, or whatever, feel better soon. I'm not going to feel better soon. Like, that's not how this works.
I know. I might not ever feel better again. So how about don't? Yeah.
But that's hard for people to sit and acknowledge what I'm feeling, this awkwardness, this discomfort, is that I want to make this better and I can't.
Yeah.
Could you just say that? I
Yeah.
really would like to make this better for you, and I'm sorry that I can't.
I think that there is such power in that kind of vulnerability,
Yeah.
in acknowledging that you cannot fix a situation, but just being, again, present and honest and saying, like, God, I wish I could fix this for you. I hate that you have to go through this. I can't do anything. I wish I could do something. And that happens all the time. It happens for me all the time. I usually don't say it out loud, but I like, because I want, again, especially if I love somebody, I'm like, I want to give you all the tools. I want to make life better for you. It doesn't work that way. There's some things we can change. There are a lot of things that we can't. And for that internal stuff, again, that grief, and I think in terms of grief, in terms of like chronic illness too, because you're grieving, again, what you thought your body was able to do your old life. Like there's so many things that it's grief, that loss. Like you can't just suddenly like turn a key and then suddenly it's off for a person. Like a person is sitting in that again and carrying that with them. And in some ways, and again, especially in terms of grief, have been changed irrevocably. And that's also fine. Like they're still a person, right? They might want different things, like speak differently, all of that. And you can adapt to that. And again, maybe. Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing, is like, it's hard. It has been hard for me to personally adapt.
Yes.
It has been hard, and some of these like ripple effects of loss, to realize that other people cannot adapt to that.
Yeah.
But I also think that's part of this like detrimental misunderstanding of grief and of loss and of illness and of all of the things that touch that, is that people are not accustomed to and don't realize how much those can change people. And so there's this like, why can't you be the person that you were before? Why are you not able to? Why can't I expect XYZ from you that I used to be able to? And I think it's I don't know what the answer to that is, other than just people being more open and talking about how much those things really change them.
Yeah. Yes. And under, again, I think there's this fundamental discomfort with change, and
absolutely,
just in general, and people don't know how to sit with that. And I think because so much of the changes that we experience in life are gradual, people don't realize that they're changing all the time. But you have these event traumas, chronic illness, death, grief, that, you know, the dramatic change happens in an instant, and people are just like waiting for you to get back to normal, as opposed to having to navigate, like, okay, there is a new person sitting in front of me.
Yeah.
How do I engage with this? Can I be vulnerable and ask questions and sit and be present and allow myself to be uncomfortable, to be present for this person that I love, right? And again, some things shift sometimes. Again, I lost a lot of friends. Whole relationship with my mother completely fell, I mean, it needed to, but it completely fell apart in the wake of grief. Sometimes the people aren't there for you because they want you to be a specific way for them.
Yeah.
And they don't even know that they are interacting with you like you are a narcissistic object.
Yeah.
But when you cannot be that for them, suddenly, oh boy, suddenly you're the bad guy. Like, I just went through the worst experience of my life. Maybe you could have like a tiny bit of compassion.
Yeah.
For me? No? Cool.
Nope. Got it. Okay.
File that away. Exactly.
Yeah. One of the most, I don't know, helpful doesn't even do this justice. Meaningful, powerful things that a friend did that I'm just thinking of as you were talking. After several years after my divorce, we were getting coffee, and she looked at me and said something like, I feel like I am re-meeting you. And I was like, I wasn't totally sure how to take it at the moment.
Yeah.
Because I had been getting a lot of messages of like, I don't know you anymore, kind of stuff. And so I couldn't quite get the vibe of it. But between what I know of her and the context of the situation and what she has shown me over time is she was just acknowledging like, yeah, you're different. You've changed. And like, I'm here for it. Like, I just want to read, like, who is New Stuff? What's she about?
Yeah.
And that is so beautiful.
That is.
That I probably need to tell her that has stayed with me because it's so rare.
And again, that idea of like you finding you presenting your authentic self, and then all the clients who are in your wheelhouse find you. There's something about authenticity in general that I think is this beacon to other people, because it's so rare to have somebody just sit with you in that moment, acknowledge the reality of the situation, not shy away from it, not cast some kind of negative judgment on it, but just say, like, because it's there whether or not somebody is talking about it. But to address it again kind of takes the teeth out of any discomfort with it. It's like, cool, let's just sit in this for a while and figure out what this is. It's beautiful. And again, happens so rarely.
Yeah. And man, how do we start this movement? Because like I honestly
I'm ready.
feel like that authenticity and awkwardness are the salve to so many wounds, I think. Because awkwardness is where authenticity can live. Awkwardness is where discomfort has room. Awkwardness is not a bad thing, but people come to therapy being like, oh, I don't know, I feel like I'm so awkward with people and at work and in my relationship. Like, cool, we can work with this. This is great. Because if you can't be that is harder to learn. To like be willing to be awkward is harder. But that is where I just feel like those to me go hand in hand. And I am the only, I'm sure there are other therapists out there, but I have yet to read in any books or Instagram things this idea that, to me, so much of healing in therapy or otherwise is about reclaiming authenticity. Because so much of what I see leading to depression, anxiety, all of these other things, addiction, is not letting yourself be who you are, is trying to contort and meet expectations either from people or from systems. And that striving and contorting and all of that is what makes people feel so bad or anxious. Or it's not just that simple, but like I see that, and I don't see that being talked about, is that this lack of authenticity as a root cause of some of this suffering. That I don't know how to make that, I don't know how to bring that into cultural awareness. I wish that it was something that was more acknowledged. But again, if we think about our culture, why would that ever be valued? Authenticity is not ever going to be valued. You're not going to have somebody say, let me offer this platter on which you can just be yourself and have whatever you need. And that's not ever going to happen. Like, to choose to value and be authentic is to be counter to culture, is to be a misfit, is to be willing to not fit in. But like, that's where I love the question, what are you not fitting in with when you're a misfit, when you're not fitting in with your family, when you're not fitting in with wherever? Because that's really the problem.
Oh my God. Yes. Right. Again, going from this idea of, okay, is it an individual problem or is it a systemic problem? And why are you taking all the blame for that? Who has taught you that blame should fall on you, as opposed to the, again, repressive systems that we're all living under, whether it is these social systems or, again, this like expectation in family to just fall in line and behave the way everybody else is behaving.
Be a good girl, a good whatever, good Christian, good.
Yes.
Don't make anyone uncomfortable ever. Be nice. Be nice.
Be nice.
At all costs, including your own. Like,
Yeah, at the cost of your authentic self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of the things that I'm doing for Misfit Mental Health coming up January 1st is going to be a New Year's Day reflection workshop. So I love that with workshops, I can have anybody from anywhere. It doesn't have to be Illinois specific, which is lovely, but anybody who wants to come and kind of shake off the stress of the holidays and this year and regroup and recenter. It's going to be a combination, a little bit of like grounding, regulation, centering, taking all of our energy back from all of the places that it has been, and then doing some guided journaling, because I've done some workshops of that and just found it immensely valuable. Again, it's like we were talking about the power of pausing when we are not really going to be invited to do that very often. We have to kind of choose to do the pause. So January 1st, that's going to be coming up, and that information will be on my website.
Fantastic. Great. I will link to that in the description.
Thank you so much for listening and or watching, depending on where you found this podcast. You can find Steph at inkwellpsychotherapy.com. I'm also going to put a direct link in the description for the form to sign up for her workshop. If you're listening to this and it's not December 28th, I'm sorry. You know, it's hard to be in the middle of an existential crisis for several months. I'm doing my best. But follow her on social media. Does she have a mailing list? Steph, create a mailing list. Join her mailing list. Check her out. Like I said, she's one of my favorite people. She's so earnest and honest, and also has this ability to like stare into the abyss and joke about it, but also stare at it meaningfully. Very rare in humans. She's also one of the most incisive people I've ever met. So if you want a very clear assessment of your character, man, talk to a Virgo. If you want to keep up with Personal Pans, you can find me on Instagram at Personal Pans, Twitter for as long as Twitter is alive. And I actually just started a Mastodon instance, which is Weirdo.Network. That's kind of appropriate with the episode that is going out today. Yeah, it's for a bunch of the Twitter refugees who want to hang out with other kind weirdos. That's what we're about. The folks at Liminal Earth, Jeremy and Garrett, have been super helpful in terms of helping me build admin and moderating, and I adore them both for that. Hang out with us there. Personal Pants Podcast and Collie Butterfly. That's where you can find me. Yeah, I think that's it in terms of promotion for anything. Like I said, sign up for Steph's workshop if you're listening to this in time, and if not, sign up for one of our other workshops. I imagine everything is good because every time I spend time with her, it is a uplifting, incredible conversation, even when we're talking about really heavy things. So yeah, I hope you are inspired to have a playful and curious day.